Hi friends, this is Vinod here, and in this session we are going to talk about how to integrate Hibernate application with Spring application. I have divided the entire session into two videos. The first video I will be creating a backend project using Hibernate, and in the second video I'll be creating a front-end project using Spring and JSP and integrate the same. Let's get started. First project I'm going to create is using Hibernate, and it will act as a backend project. Why it is going to act as a backend project is because this is going to contain all the model classes required for my application. So the entire demo I have split it into steps. So let me show you the step-wise explanation, and accordingly let me create the project in Eclipse. Let's get started. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the steps and perform the same in Eclipse. This can make you understand what we are doing at each and every step and also help you to develop an application on your own. So here the first step is create a Maven quick start project and name it as e-commerce BE project. BE stands for backend project. Let me open Eclipse. So here I'm going to create a Maven project and click next. Choose Maven quick start. Click next, and I'm leaving the group ID as com.winode, and I'm going to give the artifact ID as e-commerce BE project. Then click finish. Step 2 is delete the app.java file from your project which contains the main method. Let's do that. Why we need to do this step is because we don't need the main function code in order to work, because as we are not developing a Windows application. So let's delete this. Step 3. In order to add Hibernate framework to my project, I have to add its dependency. Only then the respective jar files gets added and I will be able to use the libraries in order to work with Hibernate framework. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's copy this. So I'm adding two dependencies here. One is Hibernate core and the second one is Hibernate validator. You can also find these dependencies in Maven repository from Google. So inside pom.xml file, I will place the dependency and save it. So the moment you save it, it will build the workspace and you will be able to see the jar file getting added in your Maven dependency. Step 3 is done. Step 4, we are going to work with H2 database. Yes, so when we work with Hibernate framework, we have to connect to a particular database and create our tables and store our records. So here I have chosen H2 database as it is a very lightweight database to work with. Again, in order to work with H2 database, I need its driver classes and I have to load the jar files. So for which I have to add the dependency of H2 database. I'll copy the XML content from here and once again place it inside pom.xml and save it. Step 5. We have to create a database in H2 and name it as e-commerce DB and set username and password for the same. So hope you guys have installed H2 database. In that case, we have to open the H2 database console from start window. So the H2 console gets opened here. And with default settings, we have to ensure that it is a server settings and setting name is server and the driver class name is properly shown here, which is org.h2.driver. And here the JDBC URL name at the end, you have to give your new database name which you would like to create. So the new database name which I wanted to create is e-commerce DB. Username is SA and password. You can set a new password. As I'm creating a new database here, you can give any password you like. Let me configure the password as sa@123 and click connect. Great. So you can see a new database is created with the database name called as e-commerce DB, which has no tables inside it. Step 5 is done. Step 6, we have to create a hibernate.cfg.xml. It's a configuration file in order to work with Hibernate and H2 database. So what we have to do is we have to create an XML file and we have to define these properties of how H2 database is going to be used in Hibernate framework. Where we have to create this file is inside src/main/java folder. Let me go ahead and create the same. So here inside src/main/java folder, right click on top of it, select new and select other, choose XML folder under which you have XML file, click next and give the name here as hibernate.cfg.xml and click finish. It creates a simple XML file, and inside this XML file I'm going to place the Hibernate properties which are required to connect with H2 database. Generally, Hibernate has to write queries for the database which it is going to deal with. So we have to define how this Hibernate framework is going to write query based on which database. I have to define certain properties and inform Hibernate framework. Your queries has to be based on H2 database. And if I want to see the Hibernate queries which are generated by Hibernate, I can enable the property show SQL as true. And for every user, I want a thread to be created to manage their session. So for which I'm giving the current session context class as thread. So these are properties which we need to copy it from here and place it inside your hibernate.cfg.xml, and let's save it. So ensure that the database name you create and the username and password is correct. So these properties are predefined Hibernate properties: hbm2ddl.auto.dialect or connection.driver class, URL, username, password, show SQL, current underscore session underscore context underscore class. All these are predefined Hibernate properties for which we have to set value based on what database we are going to work with. And remember, the create property here, which is very important, which will help us to drop the tables and create the tables in the database. Right, so let's save this. Step 7. Create an entity class called product and place it inside model package inside src/main/java folder. Let's create a class here called as product. Again, right click your src/main/java folder, select new, select class, and I want to place this class inside model package to make it more meaningful. So here I give the name of the package as model, and the class name I wanted to create is product, and let's click finish. Right, so we have created a model class called as product here, and this class is going to act as an entity class for which the table is going to be created by Hibernate framework. And I have to define certain annotations on top of this product class to make it as an entity class, and I have to define attributes which will get converted as columns in the tables by Hibernate framework. Let's do that. So let me import few packages which I need inside the class product, and let's include these two annotations on top of the class product. So here the entity annotation is used to make this class as an entity class, which becomes it as an eligible candidate for Hibernate framework to create as a table. And then the table annotation is used to give a table name of your choice. So here I'm sticking with the table name product. If I don't use the table annotation also, the same class name will be considered as table name. So let's write down the properties. So here I'm going to copy this code from here, or instead let me copy these attributes alone, and let me show you an easy way of creating the setters and getters and also the constructors with arguments. So here I have defined three properties: PID, PName, and PCost. And I've given column name as different by using the add column annotation. So as an entity class, the attribute name is PCost. But in the underlying table, I want the column name to be mentioned as product cost. So you can override the attribute name by using at column annotation. If I don't use at column annotation, again, the column name will be picked based on the attribute name. And here the ID property is to indicate the PID field is a primary key field, which will not allow duplicate values. And at generated value is an annotation which can be used to generate ID values automatically. So it will generate the value of PID automatically every time when an insert happens on product entity class. It is very important that every entity class has got an ID column, because ID column plays a bigger role in retrieving a record. So based on ID, if I have to retrieve record, it is easier and faster for me. Let me show you a few quick steps on how to use Eclipse effectively to create certain methods and constructors. Right click inside your product class, select source and choose generate constructor using fields. And you can untick PID because PID is auto generated. I don't have to use PID in my constructor. So pname pcost, click generate. It creates a constructor as you can see here. And the super keyword is not required here because I don't have a super class which needs the information of product. So let me delete it from here. Similar to this, I can also right click inside the class again, select source and choose generate setters and getters. And for all three attributes, I want to generate the setter and getter method. So here we go. As the variables are private, in order to access these variables, I have to make use of setters and getters, public setters and getters. So here we create it, save the code. So we are done with step 7, and let's move to step 8. So step 8, we are going to create a dbconfig class inside model package, which contains Hibernate configuration object, session factory object, and session object. The main purpose of this class is to help us establish the configuration to Hibernate and create a configuration object which will contain the hibernate.cfg.xml file And we will also add the entity class to this file, and we will be generating a session factory object using which I will be creating session object for each user who connects to my application. So let's do that. Right click your model package, select new class and give the class name as dbconfig. So here we go. And let me use the code from here. Okay. So here I have created a configuration object inside the constructor of dbconfig class, and I've add the entity class which I want the Hibernate framework to create as a table, for which I'm building the session factory. This will return a session factory object using which I can create session for every user and return it when they try to access the application. Let's save this code. Step 8 is done. And step 9, yes, of course, we have to create a product DAO class which is going to contain methods to perform database transactions based on product entity class. So once again, I'm going to create the product DAO class inside model package, and let me import and let me use the code from here. So what we have done in this code is I have a constructor of product DAO inside which I'm calling the constructor of dbconfig, which will enable me to create the configuration object and session factory object. And then I have an insert product method. So here I'm trying to perform an insert operation on product class using Hibernate framework in my underlying H2 database. So inside this method, I am using the session object to get the session for the transaction which we are going to perform. And then we begin the transaction by using begin transaction method, and then we use the save method from Hibernate in order to perform save operation. So save means it's an insert operation. So once it is completed, I want to commit the transaction so that the changes are getting saved permanently, so for which I commit the transaction. So the entire block of code is put inside try catch block. If something goes wrong, I want the transaction to roll back, so I have triggered the rollback methods. So here the predefined methods are begin transaction, save, get transaction, commit. All these are predefined methods. Whereas get session method is a user defined method which we wrote inside dbconfig.java, which will help us to get the session object for every user. Let us save this. And with that, we are done with our Hibernate application. So in the next video, we will discuss how to create your Spring application and integrate these two applications with one another and see how the entire code works. Thanks for watching the session, guys.